4th June 1942, North Pacific Ocean, a vast gray expanse stretching beyond the limits of sight, where sea and sky merge into a single shifting horizon. In the early hours before sunrise, a Japanese carrier strike force moves silently through the cold waters, its formation precise, disciplined, almost mechanical in its order. On the flight decks of 4 fleet carriers, mechanics make final adjustments under dim lights, aircraft are armed, fuel lines checked, and pilots stand ready in flight gear, staring into the wind with controlled tension. Everything is prepared for what they believe will be another decisive strike in a war that has, until now, tilted heavily in their favor. Far beneath the level of that silent preparation, in a very different world, thousands of kilometers away, American intelligence officers are already reading the invisible shape of this fleet. In cramped rooms filled with cigarette smoke, scattered papers, and the constant hum of radio equipment, naval cryptanalysts track fragments of Japanese communications. They do not see ships, they do not see oceans, they see patterns, numbers, intercepts. And within those fragments, something extraordinary is forming, a prediction so precise it will soon reshape the course of the Pacific War. At the center of this unseen struggle is not a weapon in the traditional sense, but a method, a carefully constructed deception combined with patient code-breaking. A trick so simple in concept that it almost appears trivial, yet so powerful in execution that it leads an entire fleet into the reach of American carriers lying in wait near Midway. It is a battle fought in silence, where information itself becomes the most dangerous force in the ocean. The significance of what is about to unfold cannot be overstated. Naval warfare has always depended upon finding the enemy first, striking first, and surviving the first devastating blow. But in this moment of history, that principle is being rewritten not by guns or aircraft, but by intelligence work carried out far from the front lines. And what happens here will demonstrate that wars can be decided long before the first bomb is dropped. In the months leading up to this moment, the United States Navy is still recovering from the shock of 7th December 1941. Pearl Harbor has changed everything. The Pacific Fleet has been shaken, ships damaged or destroyed, morale tested, and Japanese forces have surged across Southeast Asia with alarming speed. Islands fall, territories are captured, and the Imperial Japanese Navy appears to hold the initiative at sea. Their carrier force is experienced, well-trained, and confident, having already demonstrated devastating effectiveness. The Pacific Ocean itself becomes the greatest obstacle. It covers more than 165 million square kilometers, a scale so immense that even the most advanced reconnaissance aircraft of the time can search only a fraction of it. A fleet can vanish into this expanse as if it never existed. Radio silence helps conceal movements. Deception operations are carefully planned. The Japanese Navy understands this advantage and uses it with discipline. Yet within the United States Navy, a small intelligence unit begins to change the balance. Station Hypo, based at Pearl Harbor, becomes the focal point of an extraordinary cryptographic effort. Led by Commander Joseph Rochefort, a man known for his persistence and unorthodox thinking, the team works relentlessly on breaking the Japanese naval code known as JN-25. This system is not a single code, but a layered structure involving thousands of code groups combined with additive numerical keys. Intercepting messages is easy, understanding them is another matter entirely. Each day brings fragments, supply reports, fleet movements, routine signals, none of it complete on its own. Analysts compare repetitions, track changes, and slowly begin reconstructing parts of the system. It is painstaking work, requiring patience measured not in hours but in weeks and months. In many cases, progress comes from intuition as much as mathematics, a sense of pattern recognition that cannot easily be taught. By early 1942, something unusual begins to emerge. Japanese communications repeatedly refer to a location designated only as AF. Its meaning is unclear, but context suggests it is a target of major importance. Some analysts believe it refers to Midway Atoll, a small but strategically significant outpost in the Central Pacific. Others remain uncertain, warning that assumptions in codebreaking can be dangerously misleading. The challenge is clear. If AF is indeed Midway, then a major Japanese offensive is being prepared, but confirmation is essential before American carriers are risked in response. Admiral Chester Nimitz understands this dilemma. He must decide whether to trust intelligence that is incomplete yet increasingly convincing. What follows becomes one of the most ingenious intelligence deceptions of the entire war. At Midway, a simple uncoded message is transmitted, a report stating that the island's fresh water supply system has suffered a failure and is running dangerously low. Nothing unusual is attached to it. It is sent openly, deliberately, and without encryption. Within days, intercepted Japanese communications reference that AF is experiencing water shortages. The implication is immediate and decisive. The identity of AF is confirmed. It is Midway. This moment changes everything. A hidden assumption becomes certainty. A suspicion becomes operational intelligence. And with that confirmation, the United States Navy prepares its response. In Pearl Harbor, the atmosphere shifts. Maps are redrawn. Fleet movements are planned with precision. 3 American carrier groups, USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and USS Yorktown, are positioned to intercept the Japanese advance near Midway. The trap is no longer theoretical. It is real, and it is already set. If you are finding this interesting, a quick subscribe helps more than you know, and it supports more detailed historical documentaries like this one. But the brilliance of the operation lies not only in the deception itself, but in the way intelligence, analysis, and timing converge. The Japanese Navy believes it is conducting a surprise attack. Its commanders are confident that American forces are still recovering from earlier defeats. They expect minimal resistance. Yet what they do not realize is that their communications have been partially read, interpreted, and used against them. On the morning of 4th June 1942, Japanese carrier aircraft launched their first strike against Midway. Bombers and fighters roar into the sky in coordinated waves. Their objective is to neutralize the island's defenses before the main invasion force arrives. Yet unknown to them, American aircraft are already airborne, and carriers are positioned at calculated intercept points. The battle that follows is chaotic, brutal, and fast-moving. Early American attacks suffer heavy losses. Torpedo squadrons fly low and slow, facing devastating defensive fire. Aircraft are shot down in large numbers, often without achieving hits. Yet these attacks serve a critical purpose. They draw Japanese fighter cover downwards, disrupting formation and creating temporary gaps in air defense. Then, in a narrow window of opportunity, American dive bombers arrive at altitude. From high above the clouds, they descend in near silence, targeting the exposed Japanese carriers. Within minutes, the situation changes irreversibly. 3 of the 4 main Japanese carriers are struck and set ablaze. Fuel, aircraft, and ammunition detonate in catastrophic sequence. A 4th carrier is later disabled and sunk.
The psychological impact is immediate. Japanese crews trained for precision and dominance are suddenly confronted with uncontrolled destruction. Smoke rises from their own decks, communications collapse into confusion. The carefully planned offensive disintegrates, not because of superior firepower alone, but because their position was known in advance. The success at Midway is often compared with German cryptographic systems of the same period. The German Enigma machine, with its rotating electrical rotors and daily key changes, represents a different kind of challenge. It required mechanical decryption methods, later supported by early computing devices, such as those developed at Bletchley Park. In contrast, JN-25 relied on numerical codes and additive ciphers, vulnerable not to machines alone, but to analytical deduction and operational deception. Both systems were considered highly secure. Both were eventually compromised. Yet the American approach in the Pacific demonstrates something distinct. It is not purely technical, it is behavioral. It uses the enemy's assumptions as a weapon. The water shortage message is not a hack.